Chapter 10. The Seventh Morning. The wind was quieter that morning, but the silence that followed it was worse. A pale, colorless dawn crept across the outpost. Soft light falling over broken walls, twisted metal, and the half-collapsed communications tower. The storm had passed in the night, but it left behind a stillness that settled deep in everyone's bones. The kind that made every sound carry, every creak of armor or distant echo sound like a warning. Captain Reeve stood on the edge of the barricade, staring out toward the jagged ridgelines. The horizon shimmered faintly with heat, even in the early hour. Dust caught the light in slow, drifting veils. Behind him, the camp was waking, slow, heavy movements. No one really slept anymore. Lieutenant Mara was already at the comms table, her expression drawn tight as she scrolled through the morning reports. Corporal Lennox approached, yawning around a half-burnt ration bar, his armor still dusty from the last patrol. "Morning, Cap," Lennox muttered, voice rough. "If you can call it that." Reeve didn't turn. "How many hours radio silence from Patrol 6? Lennox's smirk faded. 4 and counting. They were due back before first light. Mara looked up from the screen. No comms, no transponder. Last ping was at the northern perimeter. Could be interference again. That ridge plays hell with the signals. Or worse, Reeve said. He finally turned. His eyes were red-rimmed, the lines on his face deeper now, carved by a week of exhaustion and loss. They moved out 15 minutes later, Reeve, Mara, Lennox, and 4 others. The air was dry and metallic, tasting faintly of ozone. The ground crunched under their boots, thin frost crackling over the dirt. The path north wound through broken machinery and jagged rock outcroppings. Dried mud painted the ground in streaks from where the last storm had flooded through. Nothing moved except the faint shimmer of dust devils far out on the flats. Lennox swept the scanner across the terrain. Still nothing. No thermal, no movement. Just us and the wind. "Keep your eyes open," Reeve said. "They've gone quiet before." Mara checked her wrist display. Their route took them up to the perimeter ridge, then east along the outflow trench. If they were ambushed, that's where it would have happened. They crested the ridge within the hour. From up there, the outpost looked small, a cluster of concrete and metal clinging to the valley floor. Beyond it, the barren expanse stretched out for miles. The mining fields glittered faintly under the rising sun, untouched and silent. Reeve's gaze settled on something below, a flicker of movement, not alive, just reflective. He raised his rifle scope. "Got something," he said. Down near the trench, a line of gear lay scattered, a helmet half buried in dust, a rifle snapped in two. They descended fast. The smell hit first, faint, metallic, old blood dried on the rock. Then they saw the tracks. Heavy drag marks gouged through the sand, leading off toward a ravine. The prints weren't human, 6-legged, deep, spaced wide apart. Mara crouched, her fingers brushing the edge of a cracked comm unit. "They fought," she said quietly. "Hard, but there's no bodies." Lennox scanned the horizon, rifle raised. "That's the bit I don't like." Reeve knelt beside the torn gear. "Positions." 3 spread across this line, Mara said, covering fire arcs. They were holding a perimeter. She looked up. Whatever hit them, it came from underneath. There was a sound then, faint, wet, almost human. A low groan carried on the wind. Lennox spun toward it, rifle up. "Movement! 11 o'clock!" They spread out, rifles ready. A shape crawled from behind a shattered transport hull. A figure half covered in mud, armor torn open at the shoulder. Reeve moved first. "Hold fire!" The figure collapsed face first into the dirt. Private Harlan was barely conscious when they reached him. His breathing came in ragged gasps, every word a struggle. His helmet visor was shattered, eyes wild beneath a streak of blood and grime. "Easy," Reeve said, crouching beside him. "You're safe. You're back with us." Harlan tried to speak, but only a rasp came out. Mara knelt beside him, injecting a stabilizer into his arm. His pulse flickered on her wrist display. Weak, erratic. Lennox kept watch, scanning the ravine. "We need to move, Cap. Now." Reeve nodded. "Get him up." They carried Harlan between them, heading back toward the ridge. "The whole way," he muttered, half words, fragments that made no sense. "They came from below. No warning. The ground." Reeve tightened his grip. "Save your strength. Tell me when we're back inside." But as they climbed, Harlan's eyes flicked open, wild and glassy. "They took them. All of them. They waited." "Waited for what?" Reeve asked. Harlan just stared past him. "For us to come back." Back inside the outpost, the airlock sealed behind them with a hiss. The metallic thump echoed through the corridor. Harlan was laid out on a stretcher in the med bay, one of the few rooms still intact. The lights flickered overhead, buzzing faintly. Reeve stood beside Mara, who cleaned the blood from the young soldier's face. He looked barely 25, pale, wide-eyed, hands trembling even in unconsciousness. "He's dehydrated," Mara said. "Minor lacerations, bruising, shock. Nothing critical." Reeve frowned. "Then why's he shaking like that?" "Because he saw something we haven't yet." It took an hour before Harlan was coherent enough to speak. When he did, his voice came in short, clipped bursts. The others gathered: Reeve, Mara, Lennox, and a few from the surviving team. "They hit us at 0300, Harlan began, staring at the floor. No sound. 1 second we're scanning the trench. Next, the ground caves in. Just gone. Carter fell first, then Jin. I heard them screaming, then nothing." "Did you see them taken?" Reeve asked. Harlan nodded. "Dragged under, like the earth swallowed them." He rubbed at his eyes, voice trembling. "We fired into the hole. Thought we got one. Then the lights went out. They must have jammed the sensors. Everything went black. Couldn't see a thing. They came up behind us." Lennox frowned. "Behind? You sure?" "Positive," Harlan whispered. "They were moving together. Not random, coordinated. One went for the comms, one for the flank. They knew exactly where we were." Mara's jaw tightened. "You're saying they planned it?" Harlan looked up, eyes hollow. "They waited until we split the patrol. They learned how we move." Silence hung in the medbay. Even the air recyclers seemed to pause. Reeve finally spoke. "How did you get away?" Harlan swallowed hard. "Ran. Hid under the crawler wreck. They didn't follow. I think they wanted me to." Reeve exchanged a look with Mara. "Wanted you to?" "So you'd find me," Harlan said. "So you'd come here." The room went cold. Lennox exhaled slowly. "Right. Well, that's bloody comforting." Mara tapped into the outpost sensors, eyes flicking over the flickering data feed. There's nothing on motion scan. Nothing underground within 100 meters. Reeve stared at the floor for a long moment. They're watching us, testing, waiting for the next move. Lennox leaned against the wall, forcing a smirk. Maybe they're just shy. No one laughed. By afternoon, Harlan was stable, though he refused to sleep. He sat upright on the medcot, clutching a blanket around his shoulders, staring at the floor. Every so often, he'd flinch at a sound no one else heard. Reeve came to check on him. "You did good out there," he said quietly. "You got back. That counts." Harlan shook his head. "They're not animals, sir. Not anymore." Reeve didn't answer. He just stood there for a long while, the hum of the generator filling the silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. "Get some rest. We'll need every man we've got." As Reeve left, Harlan looked up. "You don't get it. They don't want to wipe us out. They want to see how we fight." Night fell in silence. The outpost lights burned dim through the haze, casting long shadows across the walls. Reeve and Mara stood on the watchtower, scanning the dark beyond the floodlights. The stars were faint tonight, drowned by the dust haze. "The last 7 days has been rough," Mara said quietly. 3 to go until relief." Reeve nodded, eyes fixed on the horizon. "If they make it through the dust storms, they will. Tell that to the dead." Mara looked at him, tired but steady. "You're not the only one carrying the weight, Reeve. But if those things are getting smarter, we need to be smarter faster. We start countermeasures tomorrow." Reeve gave a faint nod. Traps, motion mines, maybe perimeter sensors in the ravine. Lennox's voice crackled over comms from below. "Cap, you might want to see this." They climbed down. Lennox was standing near the outer gate, rifle lowered, pointing toward the dirt just beyond the floodlight's edge. There, half buried in the sand, was something small and metallic. Reeve knelt, brushing dust away. It was a helmet. Human issue. Fresh blood inside the visor. He turned it over. The wind picked up, carrying a low sound from the darkness beyond. Not a roar, not a screech. Something slower, rhythmic, almost like breathing. Reeve stood slowly, eyes narrowing into the night. "They're here again," he said quietly. "And they're closer than before." There is always a story to be told out here in the frontier, as long as there is someone to listen, like, and subscribe, and join us again for more.